Drama, magic, tension, fighting, and more. This section of Eye of the World gave me everything I hoped for and more. Come read with me. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Alexis Brianna and Bennington is joining us for the vlog today. I am so excited about this vlog. I am continuing to read for the very first time the Wheel of Time book series, and I'm still on book 1. And for those who don't know, I fell in love with the Wheel of Time series from the TV show, but then Amazon canceled it and all of the things happened. I already had planned on reading the book series, but that just basically sped up the timeline. So I'm currently on chapter 25. So we're gonna pick up this reading vlog where I left off, and if you haven't had a chance to catch up in the vlogs, I'll be sure to link those down below so you can catch up. And the beginning portion of the vlogs, I keep them completely spoiler free, so if you haven't read up until this point, or you're still trying to catch up, or whatever the things may be, you can read along with me without having to worry about spoilers or anything like that. I just give my general thoughts and reactions without giving away what's happening in the plot. And then at the end, I give all of my spoiler-filled thoughts, comparisons with the show, and all of those things at the end. And I give you a spoiler warning so that you don't get caught off guard and you're like, wait, I didn't know there were spoilers coming. So I give a warning at the end. I don't have time to read today, but I wanted to get the vlog kicked off so that when it's time to read, I can just start reading and bring you along with me. I think that's it. Is that it, buddy? Think so. All right, so grab something to drink, grab something to eat, and let's get some reading done. Okay. I think this is a good place to start. The way that chapter ended and the dialogue was hilarious. And oh my gosh, I really want to share the quote, but I know how some people are very sensitive about sharing quotes and spoilers. So what I'm thinking, because there have been other quotes in these sections that I'm like, oh, I want to talk about it. But I think I'm going to save it for the end during the spoiler filled thoughts section where I go over quotes that are just hilarious. Because I think that quote specifically also applies to real life and how some people they aren't able to read the room and end up basically saying something and putting their foot in their mouth, and then they get a response and reaction. It's like, dang, you could have saved yourself that 1-2 verbal punch. If you just were able to have a little awareness of the room. Anyways, my thoughts, because I'm getting tired. I think that it's so interesting to see the main characters experience such a world that is bigger than what we initially started at. It just is constantly expanding, constantly challenging their worldviews and their perspectives and what they've been told, what they've learned all of their life. And I think for us as the readers, it's also a really cool way that the author expanded and is building the world, because as they're experiencing it for the first time, so are we. And seeing it from their different perspectives and just being able to experience such a stark contrast with what they believe, what they're currently experiencing, and the chaos of that, and just the tension of that with other people of the world. Okay. Hopefully that didn't give too much away, but just seeing just such a stark contrast in perspectives and worldviews and how they engage in the worlds than other people, right? And just being able to experience that and seeing how such a challenging, it's been they're supposed to go from point A to point B. There's going to be a little stops in between. So I guess it was more like point A to point D with like B and C stops, but they're at point A to like J right now with all of the stops and just pitfalls and things that are happening along the way. Anyways, just basically seeing how being on such a long, unexpected journey is pulling things out of them, and how they're having to accept things within themselves. Things are having to shift within themselves, but also how they are responding and reacting, how that's coming out in their interactions with strangers, people they've met along the way, and people that they've known since they started at the Two Rivers, you know. And just seeing that, I think it's just been fun. It's been a fun read to just see the characters develop and change and shift. And I probably need to just stop talking because I'm getting tired. So I will see you on the next reading session. All right. Have a good night. Okay, I'm going to end it here for the night. That chapter, man. Oh, that chapter got my heart racing and beating, and just the tension, just the way the writing is, where you feel the anxiety that they're feeling in those moments. And it's just crazy how with some characters, like, they're finally settled and like they feel like they're safe, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And just basically the nuance, I would say, of basically just the nuance of different characters, different groups, different perspectives. It's not just like good or evil. Like, they all are coming from, they all have different motivations. Let's just say that. And it's not all black and white. You know, I think some of it is, but there's a lot of gray area. And how some people are going towards the same goal, and just their different methods of doing so. And there's a specific group that I cannot stand. And we're in the middle of a scene with that group, and they just irk me so. But anyways, I won't go down that rabbit hole. We'll talk about it later. I think that's it. Yeah, I don't want to give any spoilers away. And the way that I'm feeling, I want to talk about that group. So we're not going to do that. So I will see you on the next reading session. Okay. I am so glad that I read that chapter, because where I left off while running errands, I was like, I cannot end it here. Like the where the action was and everything, I was like, I have to know what's coming next. Like I need to feel settled. So I feel settled, and I'm glad I read tonight. But where we just ended, we finally have gotten, or part, I don't want to give anything away. Okay. We're finally at a good spot. I'll just say that. I don't want to give anything away. But what I find interesting about the last 3 or so chapters, maybe like 4, I can't remember where I last talked to you at, but where we have just basically been is interesting in terms of us now learning, especially in the last, like, I'd say couple of pages of chapter 34. I think that's where we were at. Hold on. I'm so tired. Yeah, chapter 34. We learned a lot via a story about how the politics of a certain region within the world work, how social order works. And even in the other chapters, learning hierarchy, right? Of like just different perspectives and how things operate within the world outside of just the magic system, and outside of us learning, okay, who are the different perspective of who's good and evil, because everybody has different perspectives on the good and then who falls under the evil column. But yeah, it's just really, I would say, nuanced. Yeah, it's very nuanced in terms of who you're getting information from and their perspectives, and I'll just leave it at that. The last thing that I will say is it's just so cool seeing the characters develop and different dynamics changing and adjusting. And again, there's some things in here that I'm like, I don't remember this coming up earlier in season 1, or even in season 1 at all. And season 1 is based on this book. So I'm like, I don't know, just interesting decisions. And I'm really excited to do a rewatch of season 1 to compare it. But I definitely, like, this section definitely solidified for me that I'm not watching season 1 until after I finish it. Like, I was kind of teetering a little bit because I'm like questioning some certain things, and I was like, maybe I should watch like season 1 and figure out like where the episodes I guess are up until this point, and like not go further than where it drops off. But I'm like, yeah, no, I need to just finish the book and then compare my notes on like where the book is, and then watch the show to really have a good comparison. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, glad I read that chapter. Glad I read that chapter to round it all out. Anyways, I will see you on the next reading session. Bye, y'all. I think I need a second to process. Okay. I don't even know if I can give a recap of my thoughts without giving anything away. I'll be back. Okay, I can't say much. I will just say the last couple of chapters were extremely wellly executed. The momentum is definitely building and building and building. And there is just so much satisfaction, tension, anxiety-inducing situations. Of course, character development. The character development has been happening since the first couple of chapters. But so of course there's that. We're learning more about the worlds. Like, again, world building has been threaded throughout the entire book. You can definitely tell that like the foundation is being laid for the entire series in this book, but it's being done in a way where it's very enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. Just the tension, the atmosphere building, you can feel what's happening. You are bought in. You want to keep reading. Literally, I don't have time to read anything else. I actually don't even have time to keep talking. But like, you keep wanting to read. You're so invested at this point. And I'd say like, yeah, we are more than a third or fourth of the way in, three or 75% in ish. Kind of. I don't think there's many chapters left. I think there may be like, I don't know. I don't know how many chapters are left, but like we don't have that much left. But anyways, you're bought in by this point. And the thing is, okay. The thing is we are not even at the big climax, which I don't think we are. Actually, because like based on the show and what I can remember, again, I don't know if the show is fully basing it off of book 1 in its totality or book 1 and part of book 2. I don't know. But if it's following, if it followed closely to the book and it only did what's in the first book in season 1, then 1,000% this is not the climax. Like, it is not like the big hurrah. And because we're not like in the like last couple of chapters, like there has to be more coming. And we're not at a closure point, if that makes sense. Okay, yeah. I have so many thoughts. Okay, I gotta go. I will see you on the next reading session. Bye, y'all. Okay. Man, the pacing, the character development, while also like we're still moving forward in the plot. Like I don't know, it's just it's beautifully written in terms of just the depth, and like you can feel the feelings, the characters, they absolutely feel real. I think that's why some of them annoy me so much, is just the depth and the realness to them, and the way that Mr. Jordan was able to just advance the plot in a way, but also still have very deep character driven moments is, I mean, wow. Like, just really great writing. In terms of my non-spoiler filled thoughts around where we're at, because I think I'm going to end it here because of where we're at in the plot. I think this is just a good spot because we've been building to multiple things, but one of the things that we've been building to finally happened. And I just think in terms of like the plot, like this is a good like woosah. Plus, I have so many things I want to talk about. And I'm like, I can't keep doing these non-spoiler things. I need to stop so we could talk, like talk. You know what I mean? Anyways, okay. final non-spoiler filled thoughts are the tensions are bubbling. So we're at a settled point, but like personal tensions, political tensions, magical. We've met a whole lot of new characters in the last couple of chapters. A lot of new characters. And just the dynamics that they're bringing to the story. And yeah, it just, I don't know. Okay, I'll save that for later. But yes, I would just say all of the tensions are bubbling. You feel the tension. You feel the feels. And it's just good writing. I mean, but yeah, I think we just need to end it because I have tried talking and every time I give away spoilers at this point. So yeah, I'm going to process my thoughts, get them all together, nice and tidy, and then we'll be back for my spoiler-filled thoughts, reactions, comparisons, all those things. So I'm going to go process and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I've processed, I've organized all of my thoughts. I have some notes here. So if you have not read up until chapter 41, if you don't want any spoilers, if you've not watched the TV show, but you want to watch the TV show, if you fit into any of those categories that you do not want spoilers, I need you to click off this video. I need you to pause the video, click off, do whatever, because I don't want you to say that I spoiled it for you. I do not want you to say that. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. All right, we good? Are we good? Okay, so before I dive into all of my thoughts, I just want to let you know, I have not watched Wheel of Time since it originally came out, and I don't know what year that is. So if my details are a little fuzzy on the TV show side, or if I'm misremembering something, feel free to gently comment in the comment section or correct me in the comment section. Just give me some grace. Give me some grace because I'm purely going off of memory and I don't want to rewatch season 1 until after I finish the book because I don't want the details to get fuzzy and I want to be able to do a full comparison for my full recap after I finish the book. So just want to put that out there. Give me some grace. But it's time to get into all of my thoughts of chapter 25 to chapter 41 and let's just get into it. Let's get into it. So first we have Caemlyn and the palace. In the book, we have this immersive and gradual and extremely detailed introduction to Caemlyn. This is a city that we basically have been building up to ever since they got separated. I think it was already going to be like a pit stop along the way, but when they got separated, it was like going to be their main meeting point. And so in this, I guess, introduction, if you will, to the actual city, not like a description of the city, but like Rand is in the city and we're getting a description of it. You get a sense of just like the politics and the people and the architecture and just really just the scale of the city. Yeah, like just how big the city really is. And we get Rand climbing up the wall of the palace that he doesn't know is the palace wall. You get him falling into the garden of the palace and then meeting Elayne and her brother and then her half-brother and then the whole interaction with Queen Morgase. And I think in the show, they stop there. Didn't they stop there? I can't remember. I believe they stopped there, but it's not this whole grand like reunion and description. And a lot of these things that happen in the book are either later down the road in another location or just they're just not in Caemlyn and they don't happen this quickly. And I kind of get why they cut it because building such a grand and large city to the description that's in the book of Caemlyn, but also having to build a set for a huge city in Tar Valon, like that's a tall order. You need budget. I mean, you need a lot of budget to build those two cities without them being the same or looking the same, right? That's a lot of budget. And it's also a lot of scenes to fit into what is, I think was a 8 to 10 episode season. And I get it, but I just feel like we lost so much by losing that section of Caemlyn, all the things that happen in Caemlyn in the book and not getting that in this show. I do feel like it changed the dynamics because in the book, we get so much understanding of relationships and dynamics and politics and just how a little bit more, I think, development and introduction and foundation for a lot of characters' relationships and a lot of plot threads. Yes, a lot of plot threads that you see later on in the seasons of the show. And I feel like as if the relationships are at least similar in the show that they're going to be in the book and future books, then we're missing out on so much depth, like because of when and how they met. So like, for instance, in Caemlyn in the book, we get Elida's foretelling. We get, Morgase, Queen Morgase's, way of ruling, if you will, or like how she interrogates and how she leans on her advisors, how she leads on her Aes Sedai that's in her court, or I think technically her Aes Sedai is in her court. I don't know. She's like an advisor of sorts, you know? And even just Elida's interest, if you will. I don't want to, not interest like in a way, but just she's like super curious around Rand and has kind of like a instant like friendship. Like she wants to take him under her wing and she wants to protect him. And it's like, you lose all of that. You lose all of that in the TV show because there's just not that foundation that's built. And I think that those are some major like seeds that are being planted for the future that I do think makes relationships and just your buy-in into characters just deeper. I think it makes it deeper, especially in the book, and you just lose out on that in the show. And I get it. They were trying to do that in the show via Tar Valon, but I think it's really hard to replace just the centuries of history and the lore that was described in those Caemlyn scenes with transitioning all of that to Tar Valon. And yeah, I mean, again, I get it because of budgetary reasons, but I think that it was a huge loss. And I think that they essentially just traded depth for, you know, efficiency and budget. And I get it. You know, you know, that it's a lot of budget. That would be a lot of budget to have to build both of those cities and just some creative scripting in order to fit Caemlyn in it. But I'd be interested to see, like, I don't know, like, did they film it? Like, did they attempt it? Or was it just like a decision that they made? But for me, I just really think that Caemlyn and all of the things that happened within that city is just, it really pulls you into the story. And it also helps with a lot of the character development. So speaking of the characters' journeys and just the differences between the show and the book, we gotta talk about Perrin and Egwene and their time with the Tinkers. So I gotta be honest, I did not necessarily enjoy, or like, it wasn't a favorite scene of mine when Perrin and Egwene came up when they were with the Tinkers on the TV show. But in the book, I actually really enjoyed just the exploration of different philosophies, if you will. I'm trying not to like give too much away because like I do remember things from like later in the seasons. But anyways, I just really enjoyed understanding, I would say, more of Perrin and Egwene's perspectives and their internal battles and how that made them engage with the Tinkers, if you will. So, right, Perrin is having this internal struggle of there's things happening within him. There's some abilities and skill sets and things that are just bubbling on the inside in the book. And he doesn't have the weight of unaliving his wife like they created in the show, you know? And so he's trying to understand this and the whole wolf brother connection thing. And so him, you know, engaging with the Tinkers, there's a tension there. There's a rub because I think he's really just, I don't know, in a way projecting his frustrations on what's happening and just the uncontrollable nature right out on the Tinkers and their way of living. And it's just so anti all of the things that they've been facing, right? It's peace and love and happiness, and they've been facing nothing but violence and being on the run and tension and anxiety for just chapters at this point. And so Egwene, on the other hand, is using this as just a break from reality, if you will. She's using it as a psychological break, you know, where she doesn't have to engage with the realities of the world that they are now living in, right? And all of the things and revelations that they've experienced, and the question mark of if all of the other people that have been joining them on this travel, like Rand and, Matt and all of the other people, and oh my gosh, other people's names are escaping me, but Lan and all of the other group, are they alive or dead? You know, and she's essentially using this as an opportunity to be like, yeah, I'm taking a break right now. Like I'm peacing out right now. I will engage with you later, but I'm using this as a moment to woosah. I'm using it as a moment to woosah. And I think that you get an understanding of both of their philosophies and where they're coming at better in the book than you do in the TV show. And again, I get it, pacing and really just having to speed things up and having to hit certain scenes at certain points. Like, I mean, you have to figure out what to cut. And they, you know, those were some of the things that came on the chopping block in terms of character development. But I think really just the tension of, again, where they've been at, and then getting this whole new philosophy of the way of the leap and finding the song, and like, you know, in even separately Perrin's own separate journey, right, with him and Elias and the wolves, and really just seeing him internally struggle with his nature and just the push and the pull, and you seeing Elias really just serving as that guide for him in understanding his skills and abilities to be able to talk to wolves and just engage in that way. And again, seeing how he engages with the Tinkers as a result of that, and how he engages with Elias, and just even with Egwene, and just understanding just that bubbling up, so that all of this tension is happening, and all of a sudden, you know, Hopper gets killed, or whatever his wolf brother's name is, gets killed, and he just snaps. I mean, he snaps, and he kills the White Cloaks, and you just, in a sense, you feel like it's more earned, like that anger and the bubbling up, because you felt him. You've seen him really struggle with his nature, and he's finally, I won't say coming to grips with it, but like that process is slowly starting to happen. And once that happens and he has this connection with his wolf brothers, one of them passes, or one of them basically is, you know, unalived by one of the White Cloaks, and then you see all of the reactions from there. It's just, I don't know. Again, I think Perrin and Egwene's time with the Tinkers, and then that whole storyline of what happens with the White Cloaks, and that chase, man, that chase was tense. That chase, and just the whole, I was more invested in the Tinker storyline, and then just the chase and the White Cloaks finding them, and the fight with the wolves, and then them capturing Egwene and Perrin. It just, again, it has way more depth. It brings you in on the tension that Perrin is feeling, because he's been battling a lot internally. And yeah, all of that. So in the meantime, you have Mat and Rand, and their whole journey is a completely separate situation. And you just really see how, one, they engage with each other and their relationship, and how it develops in the book versus in the show. And again, I understand they had to probably condense it because of time. You don't have time to spend on all of their separate journeys and stuff like that. So you have to speed it up and condense it. But in the book, I think that you really see, especially in these chapters, Mat's transformation from him taking the dagger to just the corruption of his being or his soul, or I don't really know, just like what the dagger and the spirit of the dagger does to basically infect him and his personality. Because again, show Mat versus book Mat is very different. Book Mat was a jokester, a prankster. He came from a decent family life, versus show Mat was already a little bit, I would say, hardened by the world, if you will. Like, he didn't come from a good family situation. He had a way harder life. And so his transformation of the show, it's like, it wasn't as dramatic, because it wasn't like he was coming from a happy home life. Like, he was already hardened, and the dagger just basically amplified the hardness within him, and just turned it into just a very toxic and what's the word? Paranoid personality. Versus in the show, you get him being a jokester and funny, you get his personality, and then all of a sudden you see the slow progression of the dagger basically infecting him and causing him to be the paranoid person, and just really be suspicious of everybody. And I think there was way more room and progression in terms of just where he started versus where he's at, in terms of the book versus the show. And similar with Nynaeve, I don't remember there being a scene with her doing a solo mission in the White Cloaks camp and, doing all of this. And I think in the book, you just see such character development with her going from a wisdom of a small city to someone who's able to do a solo stealthy mission to help save her friends and save the people of her village. That is just such a character arc that I think is missing again from the show. And now that I can see in the show why they cut that, because it's like you can build her character in other ways. But again, I think the book just creates more depth in her character by showing, oh, she went from there and this is where she's at now. And yeah, I think it's just something that we lost in the show. And again, I understand, like, you don't have time to build all these things out in the show. I just really love that the book spent time on each of their individual journeys and we were able to see their arcs. We were able to see their growth. But I think I talked about this earlier in the vlog, but I really enjoyed how you're having these I would say, like, really deep and intense moments of character building, but the plot is still moving forward. Like, you're not having to pause the plot to have these conversations or build these things. Mr. Jordan was able to build the plot build the characters and build the world while also showing those deep in character building moments. So absolutely love that. Another interesting difference between the book and the show is when we actually meet characters. And in the book, we're able to meet Elayne and her brothers and Queen Morgase and Elayne, all in Caemlyn and in their scenes and how that develops. And I think that specifically their scenes really build the world a lot in terms of political context, in terms of power dynamics, and specifically in terms of a whole lot of foreshadowing. Again, more seeds that are being planted for later in the series. I think that we get a whole lot of that packed and punched in the book that is basically having to be redistributed in a way within the TV show. Like, so we meet them at different points of time and in different locations. And I think it changes just some of the context, if you will, for certain things in the TV show. So I'm interested to see how that progresses and differs in the book. And honestly, I don't remember meeting Queen Morgase, like her character, until season 3. Like, I know she's mentioned in season 2, but I don't know if she's like actually seen, if I'm remembering correctly, until season 3. I don't think so. And then Elayne, I think, is introduced either at the end of season 1 or at the beginning of season 2. I feel like it's the beginning of season 2. And her brothers, for sure, we do not see them until season 3. I'm pretty sure we don't see them until season 3. Yeah. And I know Elayne, for sure, we see in season 3, but I don't think we saw her. I'm pretty sure I don't remember seeing her in season 2. Again, introductions and when we meet them are interesting, because also, last thing I'll say about Elayne, we meet Elayne, I believe, when she is in the oh my gosh, Tar Valon. We meet her in Tar Valon in the show because in the book, she's about to make her journey to Tar Valon for her training, versus again, in the show, she's already there. So we don't even get that whole arc in that character development and introductions. Anyways, we meet one of my favorite characters in the TV show super early, and it is the ogre Loial, and I absolutely love him in the TV show. He is such a steadying, consistent, just type of personality. Like, the world is on fire and he's so steady. He's like, oh, we'll figure it out. Like, he has such a calming just personality and perspective. And I think that being introduced to him early just helps build that character and just endears us more to him as a character. It's such a steadying personality. And I think him coming in the middle of all this chaos and tension is such a great introduction to his character, and the way that Mr. Jordan was able to build lore and for us as the reader build the world, and for Matt and Rand, he was able to give them a glimpse into ogre culture and just the studying and how that works, and just all of the things that he's able to share within his stories in terms of just the breaking of the wheel and history. And I always say this name, the tavern, or I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he's just, again, he's able to give us a whole lot of world building in a more of a natural way. And I think all of the world building and storytelling and things that he was able to give us, and it didn't feel overwhelming, they had to redistribute that in the show in bursts of informations in different ways because it's not coming from him. And I just feel like his storytelling was just so natural, and it flowed. Again, deep character moments, but the plot is still moving forward. And we do meet a couple of other characters. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily like major players in the game. They have significant parts for the sections that they're in, and they're definitely important in those sections. But I would say like Elayne, Elayne, her brothers, Queen Morgase, and Loial were, to me, some of the more, I would say, more important main characters that you see throughout the series. And again, seeds being planted earlier in the book, and you're just able to have a little bit more buy-in into, just their journeys and, their thought processes and where they come from and just their belief and their way of thinking. And again, you're having I would say, more in-depth starting place for their character development or their individual character development along the way. And I really think that this structure changes the pacing. Again, it's a more slow pacing in the book. Again, it's the book versus the TV show, but I think that pacing, the structure, and how these characters and when these characters are introduced do have an impact on the story and just the way things develop later on in the story. I'll say that. Okay, next up, I want to cover the reunion dynamic. So in the book, the group is finally reunited after going through all of their separate journeys and their challenges, if you will, and stumbling blocks to get back together and meet in Caemlyn. And essentially, there is a whole lot of stuff bubbling underneath the surface. So there's a mix of joy, of course, and happiness that they're all alive. But then there's that tension that's just bubbling again underneath the surface because they've all just had their own challenges, and they are not necessarily the same people. They're not in their same mental position as they were when they started the journey. They're just not there. They're not the same as when they first got separated. And so there's a lot of dynamics that some people don't know about, haven't been introduced to, haven't revealed. It's a lot of tension happening underneath the surface. So when they all, except Matt, are meeting and all of that's happening, and then they go up and they see Matt for the first time after not seeing him since they were first separated, they're like, oh, you're different. You're different, because up until this point with Rand, they have basically just been building, or Mr. Jordan has been building the corruption of Matt in a way more subtle way. So it's just kind of like bubbling underneath the surface, and you see a lot of personality trait differences. You see him snapping more. You see him becoming more paranoid. Like, you see all of that. But when they're finally seeing him, for the first time in that room, it is way more visible. Like, that is when the visible changes start coming out in him. And when Moraine sees him and he comes at her with that dagger and Lan says, "Wapa," and holds his wrist before the dagger gets, man, that whole scene had my heart racing. That scene had my heart racing because I knew he wasn't going to kill her, but it's just the thought and just the anxiety. Like, is he going to nick her though? Is she going to be poisoned? Like, it's just all of the thoughts. Because again, I'm having to go into this, like, a little bit of the story, but you don't know the whole story. But back to the reunion moment, or back to this moment, how the show handles the reunion and the dynamics is just very different. Because with Matt, specifically in that whole scenario, I would say, like, corruption, or the corruption of the dagger corrupting him, again, is more visible. Again, I think that you have to be a little bit more in your face in the TV show. You can't be as subtle and, subtle's the right word. You can't be as subtle in the TV show. You have to be more visible. So I believe he had, like, his eyes were weird, and then, like, he had, like, black veins or something. Like, you could see the darkness, the blackness and stuff like that, so you were able to more visibly see it. So I'd say, again, the difference between the show and the book in terms of Matt and the corruption is psychological versus visible. So that was one of the differences that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is good. So last up, I want to talk about how the book versus the show builds towards the final climax. So I would say that the book book definitely builds in a way that it's more destiny driven. It's like more built around the lore and the foreshadowing, and you can see the character's development, and you can see how it's going to kind of build to that final woozah, which I really don't know what the final climax is going to be because of the differences in this last half section of the book versus the show. So I'm really interested to see like what the last kind of, you know, climax situation is happening in the book versus in the show. It's going to be really interesting. But I would say that the show builds it in a more time sensitive type of way where it's like, we gotta have, you know, this, we gotta do this, there's an immediate threat, the Trollocs and the this and the that and the, you know, like it's just it's like more, and the fades, it's more yeah, it's just driven more by time and immediate threat versus this is the destiny and this is the lore and, you know, the time wheel and all of the things, you know, the time wheel weaves something, whatever the saying is, you know what I mean. But anyways, it's very different. It's just very different. And so what I will say after reading all of this section is I understand why fans who read the book first were upset with the TV show. I can understand it. I can understand it because there was a lot packed into this portion of the book that was missing from the TV show. And as someone who is coming in from the TV show and reading the books for the first time, it opens up the world for me as a original TV fan, now turned reader of the series, you know, fan. It opens everything up and things are so much more meaty and there's more depth and I'm learning more about the characters. I'm actually empathizing with characters that I did not empathize with, you know, in the TV show. And so it's just, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I can understand why fans of the book series, it's a lot to pack in a TV show, in a TV adaptation specifically. And yeah, I can empathize with book fans who were original book fans. I can definitely empathize. So yeah, those are my thoughts about chapters 25 through 41. And I had me a time. So if you're reading along with me, what were your thoughts? What were some of your favorite scenes? If you were a TV show watcher and you're just now getting into the book, or maybe you're not reading the book, you're just, you know, along for the ride with me, but you watched the TV show, what are some interesting things that you've learned as I've been reading and like the differences? I'd love to know all of y'all's thoughts in the comment section. And if you're interested in reading The Wheel of Time, this section specifically, like if you're like, okay, that first chunk was a whole lot of world building, it was slow, there was a couple of moments, I think that this section will show you why people love this series so much. And I know that it gets better from here, but if you've been trying to hang out with the book, or you're trying to been hanging in there with the book, I just hang in until this section. This section is really good. It shows you just the political complexity. It shows you world building and gets some action in there and some magic. And it's a really good section of the book. So hanging in there until that section. All right. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. If you've made it to this point in the video, welcome to the end of the video, crew. Thank you for hanging out with me. Be sure to drop a star emoji in the comment section. I always love engaging with y'all and knowing who's a part of my end of the video crew. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss a new video from me. In the meantime, happy reading. Bye, y'all.